Keanu Reeves was out for a quiet walk after a long day of filming. He had been working on a new project for the past few weeks, and tonight he wanted nothing more than to get away from the set, clear his mind, and just enjoy the peace of the city. Dressed casually in a dark hoodie, jeans, and simple beanie, Keanu blended into the crowd, deliberately keeping a low profile as he strolled through the streets. The city was busy, as it usually was, with people rushing from one place to another, the hum of conversation filling the air. Yet Keanu seemed to move through the world like he was in his own bubble, unaffected by the noise. He wasn't interested in the crowds or the flashing lights of the city. He just wanted a moment to himself. As he walked past shops and cafes, the weight of the day seemed to lift off his shoulders. The busy street had an almost soothing effect on him as he took in the familiar sights of urban life. But something caught his eye: a car parked in an unusual corner of the parking lot. The car wasn't new. It was old and run down, and something about it made Keanu pause. As he walked closer, he noticed that it was parked in a quiet spot, far from the bustling part of the city. What struck him was the faint light inside, a light that indicated someone might be there. Keanu's curiosity piqued as he continued to walk, his steps slowing as he approached the car. It was tucked away in a corner of a parking lot that was typically reserved for patrons of nearby businesses. The car was an older model, its paint faded and chipped, with a distinct look of a vehicle that had seen better days. Yet it stood out in this otherwise bustling area of the city. The parking lot was mostly empty, with just a few luxury cars parked further down, their shiny exteriors gleaming under the streetlights. The contrast between these well-maintained vehicles and the battered car at the corner was stark. Something didn't sit right with Keanu. He couldn't explain it, but his instincts told him that something was off. As he got closer, he noticed the faint glow of light coming from the interior of the car. It was a subtle hint that someone might be inside, but it was the kind of situation that could easily be overlooked in the busy night of the city. Yet, something about the sight made him stop. It wasn't like the usual late-night parkers or people grabbing a quick nap in their cars. The moment felt different. Keanu paused for a moment, standing at the edge of the parking lot, looking over the car. He briefly debated whether to continue on his way or take a closer look. His sense of empathy, which he'd carried with him throughout his life, nudged him to approach. Keanu stepped closer to the car, his instincts guiding him. As he neared the vehicle, he noticed the worn-out clothes that hung loosely on the woman sitting inside. She was in the front seat, her eyes tired and unfocused, as if the weight of her circumstances had taken its toll. She cradled a small baby in her arms, wrapped in a thin, faded blanket. The baby's soft cries broke the stillness of the night, and Keanu could see the mother gently rocking the child, trying to comfort it with tender gestures that spoke volumes about the love she had for her child, despite the difficult situation they were in. The interior of the car was cramped, with bags of belongings piled up in the back seat, a mixture of clothes, food wrappers, and items that had clearly been carried with her for some time. The windows were rolled down just enough to let in a faint breeze, and Keanu could feel the chill in the air. The woman's face showed signs of exhaustion, but there was no anger or bitterness in her expression, only a quiet resignation. It hit Keanu hard in that moment. The realization that this woman and her baby were living here, in a car, in the middle of the city, with no place to go. The baby, too small to understand, was probably cold and hungry, and the mother was doing everything she could to provide comfort and warmth, despite the circumstances. Keanu felt a wave of compassion for them both. He couldn't just walk by and ignore what was in front of him. His heart ached seeing the situation, and he knew he had to do something to help. Keanu stood quietly for a moment, taking in the scene before him. The mother, despite her obvious exhaustion, was doing her best to comfort the baby. She gently rocked the child back and forth in her arms, her eyes fixed on the infant as if trying to keep him calm, though her own face betrayed the heavy burden she was carrying. Her clothes were layered, but they were old and worn, offering little warmth against the evening chill. The baby, wrapped in a thin blanket, seemed to be unsettled, no doubt cold and hungry. The car, which served as their home, was cramped, and the small amount of space didn't offer much comfort or privacy. There were bags of clothing, some scattered toys, and remnants of what little food they could afford, all cramped into the small space. Keanu noticed the mother's hands trembling slightly as she stroked her baby's hair. It wasn't just the cold, it was the weariness of being a parent in a situation beyond her control. The quiet desperation in her movements, her efforts to keep the baby calm despite everything, struck him deeply. He could see the mother's face, lined with worry and fatigue. She wasn't asking for help, She didn't seem to expect anything from the world. There was a quiet strength about her, but also an undeniable sense of helplessness. She was doing the best she could, but Keanu knew that the situation was unsustainable. A mother and her child, stuck in this cycle, needed more than just a few kind words. They needed help, and Keanu couldn't stand by and watch. As he stood there, the weight of the moment pressing down on him, Keanu made a decision. He knew he couldn't just turn away. Keanu's heart ached as he stood there, watching the woman and her baby. His first instinct was simple: help them. But he knew that this situation required more than just a one-time act of kindness. It needed immediate, tangible support. His thoughts raced. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, and yet he couldn't let that stop him from doing what he knew was right. As he stood there, a sense of urgency grew inside him. This wasn't a problem that could be solved by simply offering some spare change or a warm meal. This was a mother in dire need, and a child who deserved more than the cold confines of a car. Keanu's mind was already working. He needed to make sure they had a place to stay, that the baby would be warm, and that they had everything they needed to start rebuilding their lives. He quickly thought about his resources, the contacts he had, and how he could make a difference in this moment. He wasn't a politician or a social worker, but he knew he had the power to help in a way that would have a lasting impact. He walked up to the car, gently tapping on the window. The woman looked up, startled at first, but her expression softened as she recognized the kind, familiar face standing before her. "Hi," Keanu said softly, offering her a reassuring smile. "I noticed you and your baby here, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. Can I help you? I can't imagine how hard this must be." The woman blinked a few times, clearly caught off guard by the celebrity standing before her. But she wasn't going to turn him away. She opened the window a little more, her voice shaky but filled with quiet gratitude. "We're managing, just trying to get by," she said, not wanting to ask for anything but not turning down the kindness either. Keanu looked at her with compassion. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm going to make sure you and your baby have a warm place to stay tonight. I'll make some calls, and we'll get everything you need." The mother, still overwhelmed by the situation, nodded, unable to find the words. She hadn't expected this kind of kindness from someone she'd never met. Keanu gave her a kind but firm look. "I'll take care of it. Please don't worry." Without wasting a moment, Keanu pulled out his phone and dialed a number. He had been in the city long enough to know the right people who could help in this kind of situation. As the phone rang, he glanced back at the woman and her baby, who were still sitting in the car. The baby had settled a little, lulled by the warmth of the blanket, but Keanu could see the mother's exhaustion in her eyes. The phone picked up, and Keanu spoke immediately, his tone calm but urgent. "Hey, it's Keanu. I need your help. There's a homeless mother and baby in need of immediate assistance. Can you find a shelter for them for the night? And I need some supplies, baby food, warm clothes, blankets. Anything you can get to them as soon as possible." On the other end, his contact responded with understanding. "Got it, Keanu. I'll make sure they're taken care of right away. We'll have a place for them to stay, and I'll have everything delivered to them within the hour." Keanu nodded, relief flooding over him as he listened to the plan unfold. He knew it was the right call. His contact was already on it, and the wheels were in motion to ensure that the mother and child would not spend another night in that car. As he ended the call, he felt a sense of gratitude that he could act quickly and make a difference in someone's life. He turned to the woman, who was now sitting a little more upright, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "I've made the arrangements. You and your baby are going to have a warm place to stay tonight, and I've arranged for the essentials to be delivered to you." The mother, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "Thank you. I don't even know what to say. I never expected someone like you to stop and help us." Keanu smiled gently, not wanting her to feel overwhelmed by gratitude. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I could help." After making the arrangements for the shelter and supplies, Keanu turned his attention back to the mother and her baby. The night had grown colder, and while help was on the way, he knew they couldn't stay in the car any longer. The baby needed warmth, and the mother needed rest. Keanu made a decision. He would take them to a nearby hotel himself. "Come on," he said gently, offering his hand to the woman. "I'm going to get you and your baby somewhere safe and warm while everything is taken care of. Let me drive you to a hotel. It's the least I can do." The woman, still in disbelief, glanced up at Keanu and then down at her baby. She hesitated for a moment, her mind likely racing with the weight of her situation, but she nodded, knowing that she had no other choice. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu helped her gather the few belongings she had in the car, making sure to pack up what was necessary. He took the baby from her arms, carefully cradling the child, who had finally fallen asleep in the warmth of the blanket. The mother grabbed her coat, and the three of them walked toward Keanu's car. As they drove to the hotel, Keanu kept the conversation light. He asked about the baby's name and how old the child was. The woman answered with a soft smile, her nerves slowly starting to ease. It was clear that she had been through so much, but now with Keanu's assistance, there was a glimmer of hope for a fresh start. During the drive, Keanu kept his focus on the road, but his mind couldn't help but reflect on the fragility of life. He knew how easily circumstances could change, how a person's situation could go from stable to uncertain in the blink of an eye. He didn't want the woman to feel like a charity case, but rather a person who deserved kindness and dignity, no matter her circumstances. The hotel wasn't far, and as they arrived, Keanu made sure to escort her inside. He spoke to the front desk staff and arranged for a comfortable room, ensuring that they would have everything they needed. The staff was surprised but professional, immediately providing the woman with a room and a set of fresh linens. Keanu then stepped aside, giving the mother a moment to settle in. He quietly pulled a hotel gift card from his wallet and handed it to her, ensuring she would have funds for whatever she needed during her stay. "This should cover any expenses while you get situated," he said. Once the mother and baby were settled in their room, Keanu didn't simply leave it at arranging a safe place for them to stay. He went the extra mile. After making sure they were comfortable and had everything they needed, he turned to the hotel staff and, in his usual humble yet purposeful manner, made one more request. "I want to make sure they have what they need," Keanu said quietly. "Do whatever you can to make sure this room is fully stocked for them. Food, baby supplies, and anything else that can make their stay easier. And I'd like to cover the expenses for their stay here for as long as they need it." The staff nodded, visibly touched by his generosity, and assured him that they would take care of it all. Keanu's gestures weren't just about money. They were about offering peace of mind to a woman who had been living in constant uncertainty. But he didn't stop there. Keanu, understanding the immediate needs of the situation, also handed the manager a blank check. "Please make sure they have what they need to get back on their feet," he said. "Arrange for further assistance and any support they might require, whether it's through local charities or social services." The hotel manager, stunned by the generosity, promised to make sure every detail would be handled. As Keanu made his way out of the lobby, he turned to the mother, who was standing in the doorway of the room, holding her baby close. "You're not alone in this," he said, offering one final comforting smile. "You and your baby are safe here, and we'll make sure you have everything you need. If there's anything more I can do, just let me know." The mother, her eyes brimming with tears, could barely find the words. "Thank you. Thank you so much," she said, her voice shaky with emotion. "I didn't know how much longer we could keep going. This means everything." Keanu simply nodded, his heart full, then turned and walked out the door, leaving behind a woman and her baby who were no longer trapped in their dire situation but had been given a chance at something better. As Keanu walked toward the exit of the hotel, he paused at the door and looked back. A small smile crossed his face as he thought about the impact of his actions, knowing that he had made a difference, at least for tonight. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he could do. He turned back toward the front desk, where the hotel staff were still processing the arrangements. He asked the manager, "Do you have any local charities or organizations that work with families in need? I'd like to make a contribution, something that will help her and others like her." The manager looked surprised, and with a deep sense of admiration for Keanu's thoughtfulness, she quickly handed him a pamphlet of several local charities that could help the woman and others in similar situations. Keanu took the pamphlet, nodding his thanks, and before leaving the building, made another call to one of the organizations listed. He wanted to make sure they knew about the woman's situation and could offer any long-term support she might need. After the call, Keanu walked back to his car. The city felt a little different now. It was the same city, the same busy streets, but it seemed to hum with a new sense of possibility, thanks to the small difference he'd made. He thought about how often people rush through life, seeing others as obstacles or inconveniences rather than fellow human beings facing their own struggles. Keanu, in his quiet way, had always sought to challenge that idea. Tonight, he'd given someone not just a night of comfort, but a shot at hope, a reminder that kindness could change everything. As he drove home, Keanu felt the weight of the moment in a good way. He didn't need recognition or accolades for what he had done. It was simply part of his belief in helping others in meaningful ways. He arrived at his home, feeling a sense of peace, knowing that someone was now safe, warm, and taken care of. And that, to him, was enough. Keanu arrived home, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. As he settled in, he couldn't shake the thought of the mother and her baby. While he had ensured that they had what they needed for the night, Keanu knew the road ahead would be difficult for them. His thoughts were always with those in need, and he understood that sometimes the most significant assistance wasn't just about offering immediate help, it was about making sure someone had the tools to rebuild. The following morning, Keanu made another call. He reached out to a local nonprofit that helped homeless families regain stability. He explained the situation with a mother and child and arranged for them to receive long-term support, including access to job training, counseling, and stable housing. Then, Keanu went a step further. He quietly arranged for a local bank account to be set up for the mother, where a sum of money was deposited to ensure that she could start rebuilding her life without immediate financial worries. Keanu made sure that the account would be under her name, so she could have complete control and independence. When Keanu arrived at the hotel the next day, he checked in with the hotel staff to make sure everything was going smoothly. The mother, now visibly more relaxed, was sitting in the lobby with her baby in her arms. The difference was striking. Her shoulders no longer carried the weight of constant worry, and there was a calmness about her that hadn't been there the day before. She looked up as Keanu approached, her eyes brimming with tears. "You didn't have to do all of this," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I never thought someone like you would ever help someone like me." Keanu smiled softly, his expression humble. "You didn't ask for any of this, but everyone deserves a second chance. I'm just happy I can make a difference, even if it's just a small one." He handed her a letter with the details of the support he had arranged, housing assistance, job placement programs, and a financial contribution to get her on her feet. The woman's hands trembled as she read the letter, her eyes widening in disbelief. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. This can change everything. I can't believe you did all of this for us." Keanu nodded, his smile kind but modest. "You deserve it. Take care of yourself, take care of your baby, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out." With a gentle handshake and a final word of encouragement, Keanu turned and walked toward the door. He didn't need to stick around for recognition or thanks. His actions spoke for themselves. As Keanu exited the hotel, he reflected on the encounter. In a world where people were often consumed by their own lives, he had taken the time to help someone who had fallen through the cracks. And while it might not change the world overnight, it had undoubtedly changed one life, and that, in his eyes, was enough. As Keanu stepped out of the hotel, his thoughts remained with the woman and her baby. The quiet moments of reflection helped him understand just how important small acts of kindness could be, especially when extended to those who were often overlooked by society. What had begun as a random encounter had turned into something life-changing, not just for the woman, but for Keanu himself. While the woman and her baby had their immediate needs taken care of, Keanu knew there was still a long road ahead for them. But as he drove away, his heart was light. He had done what he could, and sometimes that was all anyone could ask for. A few weeks later, Keanu received an unexpected letter at his office. The envelope was simple, but the words inside were anything but. The letter, written in the woman's hand, expressed an overwhelming amount of gratitude. She thanked him for his generosity and explained that her life had turned around. With the financial assistance, housing support, and job training he had set up, she had found stable employment and a new place to live. Her baby was thriving in a safe environment, and she was finally starting to rebuild her life step by step. "I never thought I would get the chance to start over," she wrote. "I'll be forever grateful for your kindness, Keanu. You didn't just help me survive, you helped me live again." Keanu smiled as he read the letter. He kept it in his desk drawer, a reminder of the powerful impact of a single act of kindness. But true to his nature, he didn't seek any recognition. He didn't want accolades or public praise. For him, it was about making a tangible difference where he could, and seeing the change he'd helped create was enough. The woman's words stayed with him, and the warmth of knowing he had helped restore someone's hope carried him through many of the days that followed.